Welcome to this ARWO Liquid Knowledge webinar, applying Disney's world-class guest service to your utility. I'll be your host today. My name is Gina Veazey, and I'm the Marketing Director at ARWO. Before we get started, we do have some housekeeping announcements. First of all, the session is being recorded and all attendee mics are in mute. Second, you'll get a link to the replay probably later today by email. Lastly, we'll have time at the end of our session for Q&A, and we ask that you enter your questions as you have them using the question mark at the top of your screen. We're very happy to acknowledge our sponsor today, CoBank. Its support is helpful in making these webinars possible. So thank you to CoBank. For those of you who are not familiar with ARWO, it is the voice and knowledge exchange of regional water and wastewater organizations. We're building a community to advance the interests of these organizations, and we'd really love it if your organization were a part of it. We have a great membership promotion offer today. If you join in September, and you can enjoy nearly 16 months of ARWO membership for the price of 12 when you pay your full 2026 membership dues. So you can scan the QR code on your screen and drop your name in the form to be contacted by our membership director, or you can contact her directly if you prefer. The last thing before we get started, I'm so proud to share that ARWO has a brand new website. It's a reflection of the important moment that we're in for regional water and for ARWO. You can activate the ARWO Problem Solvers Network for peer-to-peer help with important decisions or challenges. You can access a complete archive of our past webinars, and you can read newsletter articles and more. So we encourage you to check that out after today's webinar. It's at the same address as usual, www.arwo.org. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Glenn Marsluff. He is the ARWO Board Secretary and the Chief Executive Officer of Toho Water in Delaware, Ohio. And he's going to introduce our speaker today.
Thanks, Gina. As she told you, I'm Glenn Marsluff. I'm the CEO here at Toho Water, and I've been on the ARWO board since its inception in 2016. So delighted to be here today, introduce today's speaker. Question is, what can you learn, what can water utilities learn from Disney? And as it turns out, quite a lot. And it's our great pleasure today to have a speaker who is the authority, the master on the topic, Heather Havey of Toho Water Authority. Heather has led the Toho customer service team for nearly 4 years. She's the Chief Stakeholder Services Officer at Toho, a title that speaks volumes with how Toho appreciates customer service. Before coming to Toho, Heather served the Walt Disney World Resort for 20 years, where she launched the Disney Service Basics across the parks and resort operations. She continues to advocate for consistent customer service, drawing on these Disney principles. Heather has spoken the last 2 years at our annual ARWO Summit, and she inspires me and the other attendees to rethink what it means to serve and care for our customers and what we can do in the utilities world to echo what they've done in Disney. I still recall the first time I walked into Disney. I was already an adult, didn't go as a child, but understood the difference between a theme park and the service you get there versus what you see in a ride park like we get here in Ohio for Cedar Point and some of the others. So really appreciate that perspective and the differences of how that industry is cared for its guests. One of the things that Heather's going to be sharing with you today is an overview of the Toho Promise, a philosophy guide to the idea of customers as well as community and Toho employees. Together, the Toho cares. So Heather, thanks so much for joining us today and sharing your very unique perspective and experience on customer service with water utilities. So please take it away when you're ready.
Thank you both so much. I appreciate the opportunity to share this information with you. So again, my name is Heather Havey. I'm the Chief Stakeholder Service Officer here at Toho. I will tell you, water utilities are very different than being in the theme parks and resorts business. But the good news is that customer service, guest service, you really, it doesn't matter, customers, guests, whatever you want to call them. I'm really excited about the opportunity to be able to share with you what we do here at Toho. So on the next slide, you'll see at Toho, we are located here in Central Florida. So just really a hop, skip, and a jump away from Disney. We're in Osceola County. We support the city of St. Cloud, the city of Kissimmee, as well as portions of Polk County and Orange County. We have really now it's about 170,000 customers. We have 600 plus board approved positions, and we are guided by what you will hear me talk about as the Toho Promise. So some people may say, you know, why me? Why am I talking about this topic? Well, I have been with, you'll see, actually, I've been with Toho for about 3.5, almost 4 years at this point. And I've been in the water sector for the same amount of time. I remember when I went through the interview process, and, you know, for those of you who've been through the interviews before, you ask questions like, what do you want me to do? And, you know, what would you expect me to do in my first 30, 60, 90 days in the role? And the answer was learn water. And I have learned that absolutely that was the thing I needed to do. I lead Toho's customer service organization, which includes the contact center, the business center, the service center, as well as water conservation. As of recently, I also lead as part of our stakeholder services organization. I lead our procurement team as well as our GIS team. So prior to coming to Toho, I worked for Disney for 20 years. And while I was there, I had the opportunity to do a number of things. But I spent 3 years launching what is called the Disney Service Basics across parks and resort operations. And then I led, I spent 11 years leading what was called Guest Experience Services, which was the contact center that handled post-visit guest recovery. What that included was, it was calls, it was emails, it was live chats. And when I say post-visit guest recovery, these were customers who came to Disney and maybe didn't have the best experience. We got compliments and concerns. And if you think about in your own experience, most people only write when they have a bad experience, not when they have a great experience. So we handled a lot of recovery for customers who did not enjoy the time that they had, or maybe they felt like they didn't get their money's worth. So when I joined Toho, there were really 3 opinions. And I learned these things after I got here. The first opinion was excitement. Yay, she comes from Disney. Disney provides great service, high quality service, guest service. So folks were really excited about that. Prior to going to Disney, I was at General Electric and I worked in financial services. So the second opinion was they were really excited because I'm a 6 Sigma black belt. So I kind of have this weird combination of magical and analytical to me. So folks were excited about that. But I also came to learn that there was some hesitation. So coming from Disney, I was dealing on a regular basis with customers who spent thousands of dollars to pay for a Disney vacation. I had spent 20 years working somewhere where people were saving their money for years. They were spending a lot of money to come from all around the country, all around the world, to have, in some cases, a once-in-a-lifetime vacation. And people were wondering, how is I going to relate? Where our customers here within the Toho footprint can often struggle to pay their $50 water bill. So how is I really going to translate that? And really what it comes down to is a customer is a customer is a customer or a guest, depending on, the industry you're in. It really doesn't matter. The same principles apply. So with that being said, I'm thrilled to be at Toho. I'm thrilled to be in the water sector, and I'm thrilled to share with you how those principles related to guests apply across any, really any organization in any industry. So the first thing that I would say is words matter is a phrase that I have used and that my team uses. Words matter. So what that means in Disney language, there's a couple of examples that I'll share with you. In Disney language, words matter. There are things that I mentioned. I helped launch the Disney Service Basics. So way back when Disney was starting its parks out in California, they launched what was called the 4 keys. The 4 keys at Disney are safety, courtesy, show, and efficiency. And they're in that order for a very specific reason. Safety always comes first. So if you think about your organization, you always want to make sure that you're providing a great service and you're providing a great experience to all of your customers. But ultimately, you got to make sure that you're delivering clean water and you're delivering safe water. So from a Disney perspective, the example we'll use is if there's a cast member who's walking down Main Street before the parade starts, and there's a family who's allowing their kid to stand up on a planter so that they have a good view of the parade. You may think from a courtesy perspective, well, let them stay. They're going to have a better view of the show that way. But from a safety perspective, you tell that person, I'm going to need your child to come down from there. Maybe they can come up and sit by the edge of Main Street so they can see the parade better. But ultimately, safety is the most important thing. So the 4 keys basics is repeatable language. Everyone at Disney can tell you the 4 keys basics. You learn it on day 1: safety, courtesy, show, and efficiency. Next is what Disney calls the value stream. And that is what's on the bottom left. And that is basically when you have really good, strong leaders, your leaders are going to drive excellent cast performance. And you will hear from time to time, even though it's been 3.5 years, I will exchange the words cast and employees pretty regularly, as well as guests and customers. It happens on almost a daily basis, but that's what happens after 20 years at Disney. But this value stream is that strong leaders will inspire excellent performance by their cast members. And when you have committed cast members, they're going to drive guest satisfaction. And as a result for that amazing guest service that you're driving, you're going to drive business results. Your customers are going to want to come back. They're going to want to vacation with you more often, and they're going to want to spend more money. So before we launched the Disney Service Basics, we had what we called the 7 service guidelines. So the 7 service guidelines go back to before Disney World was even Disney World, back to Disneyland. And every cast member knew what the 7 service guidelines, and you can see they're themed after the dwarves. But what happened was everyone was supposed to follow the 7 service guidelines. But if you worked at the Magic Kingdom, maybe they had their own service standards. If you worked at food and beverage in the Magic Kingdom, they had their own service standards. If you worked at Casey's Corner, which is a food and beverage location inside the Magic Kingdom at a Disney park, you had your own service standards. So what they found was you had people who were trying to follow 17 different standards on how to deliver great service. And so the decision was made to really streamline that, go back to the basics and introduce what they called the Disney Service Basics, which was presenting a positive image and energy, being courteous and respectful to all guests, staying in character and playing the part, and then going above and beyond. So that was the consistent, repeatable language at Disney. At Toho, our repeatable language is around three things: the promise, the principles, and the priorities. So Toho does not have what you would call a vision, a mission, and core values. We have the promise, the principles, and the priorities. So with the promise, every single employee knows the promise. If you ask any person at Toho what the promise is, they will be able to tell you that our customers, our communities, and our employees trust that Toho cares. So this is something that was introduced by our CEO about 6 years ago. He got here and he started asking around, what is the mission? What is the vision for Toho? And nobody could really tell you. And if you think about a lot of companies and maybe your utility, do people know the vision and the mission? Can they repeat it? For us, it's very simple. It's very few words. Our customers, our community, and our employees trust that Toho cares. So then we also have our principles and our priorities. So for the principles, I will tell you that if you ask people at Toho what the principles are, not a lot of them know it. That is a big focus for my team right now. And, you know, they're in an order that's important. But in order to help my team remember the principles, I've used DRIP Q. You figure DRIP, we're in the water sector. So my team is getting pretty good at remembering dependability, responsiveness, integrity, professionalism, and quality. But I'm at a place where what I'm doing with my team is, whether it's how you hire, whether you're writing job descriptions, whether you are writing interview questions, how you performance manage people, how you do your mid-year, your end-of-year evaluations, we're anchoring back to those principles. So if you have an employee who maybe, you know, you want to say that they're being rude or they're being insubordinate, I'm really asking the team, use the words unprofessional. They're not, you know, you're not adhering to the Toho principle of professionalism, and then give them the example. But it's that repeatable language. How do we say that over and over again? So with that being said, I would ask you, what is your language? Do you have language that your team uses consistently? And then, you know, I would just tell you, does your team know the mission statement? Does your team know what your vision is? Are you using consistent language that reinforces the message over and over again? So where that really starts is back to the Disney language and back to leadership. It really starts with leadership. So on the next slide, you'll see this is the value stream. The value stream starts with the Disney language of leadership. So a couple of foundations of leadership that if we're going to talk about guest service and we're going to talk about customer service, we have to start with those leadership principles. So one of the first things I would say is important is around building trust. And for trust, there's an equation that I learned at one point in time about how you inspire trust. And how you know whether or not you can trust someone is there's an equation that says credibility plus reliability plus intimacy divided by self-orientation. So how well do you know what you're talking about? How reliable are you? Do you deliver what you say you're going to deliver? Are you vulnerable? Do you tell people when you don't know something? And then are you looking out for your team? Are you looking out for more than just you? I can tell you for my team, are you looking out for your team? Are you looking out for your peers? And are you looking out for our customers and our community and Toho overall? So some other leadership foundational things that we really focus on relate to showing genuine care. So a lot of people say, how do you build that culture? One is to show genuine care. Next is, you know, not just care, but being genuine about that. One of the focuses that I have is around a concept that I call deposits and withdrawals. So I think we all know you have to take withdrawals from your team. Whether that means you need them working overtime, whether that means you need them to change their schedule. Maybe there's something that you can't offer them that you used to offer them. But for me, it's around this concept of deposits and withdrawals. And I make deposits with our team on a regular basis so that those withdrawals don't quite sting as much. I'm transparent with the team. You have to be transparent. If there's something that you can't do for the team, you need to be able to tell them that. You know, you don't want them to have any surprises. Communication is so important, making sure that you're communicating with the team in a way that they're going to understand, and then listening. So that active listening where you're listening not to respond, but you're listening to hear. You're listening to be able to understand what you can do to better support the team. Setting expectations, being really clear with your team about what it is that you expect from them. So I tell my team, I can't expect you to deliver if I haven't told you what it is that I need you to be able to deliver. So we just recently had some town halls, and as a part of those town halls, that was one of our big messages, is if you're not clear with what's expected of you, you need to tell your leader, and your leader needs to be able to share that with you. Your leader needs to be able to be super clear about what's expected, because at the end of the day, we're going to hold you accountable. And it's so important that we are holding people accountable, because to the extent that we're not, those high performers are going to see that, and those high performers are going to become less and less motivated to deliver when they see that the people who aren't being held accountable. And then you have to do all of these things consistently. Build trust, show care, be genuine. You have to be consistent on each of those things. So I'll share with you a little bit about my experience specifically at Disney with delivering guest service, and then how we can translate those things in the water utility. The first thing I'm going to tell you is it's a work in progress. I am not able to deliver everything at this time that I was able to deliver at Disney. It takes time. It takes some investment. There's a lot of change management. So some of the things I'm going to share with you, I have been able to do, and some of the things are a work in progress. So the next one after that I'll share with you is a couple of approaches that we used and different phrases. And again, this is really back to the words matter. Focusing on one guest at a time, we would use that phrase very regularly. And what that meant was every customer is coming from a different place. Every customer has a different experience. Maybe they're all, they all live in your territory. They're all using your water, but they're all coming from a different place. So after you deal with one customer, you kind of have to shake it off, and you have to start fresh with the next customer. Next is around, we used to have an approach that was called respond and recover. And what that meant was listen and then recover. So if a customer calls us or a customer would write an email to us, we will respond back to them and we will recover. And we shifted to replacing respond with discover. So really listening to understand where that customer is coming from so that you better know how to recover. And so the example that I can give you on that is I used to respond to a lot of the guests that would write into our senior executives. And I had a guest that wrote in regarding an experience that they had. They had come to visit over Christmas, and they brought their daughter, and they had shared that one thing their daughter wanted to do was see Cinderella and never got to see Cinderella. From a respond and recover perspective, our approach would have been the customer was here, it was too busy, they didn't get to do everything they wanted to do. Once we had proof that they had been here, we would provide them with complimentary tickets to come back. Well, this was a gentleman who was writing. He lived somewhere in mid-America. He'd had to save a lot of money to get here. He'd had to spend money on a hotel or a resort. He'd had to spend money on meals while he was here. In speaking with him, what I found out was he actually had an adult special needs daughter. And seeing Cinderella was the only thing she wanted to do while she was here. So what I was able to do was put together a Cinderella care package to send to him, including a Cinderella doll. I sent him, I believe it was a coloring book and some markers. I had Cinderella personally autograph an 8x10 photo to send. And the gentleman called me after he received the package in tears. He was so excited about what I had provided to him. While the value of the tickets was much greater from a monetary perspective, this was the appropriate way to recover this guest based on the discovery. Next was, the next approach was shifting. Yes.
Heather, this is Gina. I just want to interrupt real quickly. We've had a couple of comments that there's a problem with the audio, and I would just ask the people on the line, if you have a problem with the audio, to please put it into the chat. I don't know there's a lot I can do to help other than to try and guide you through what could be going on your local machine, because I'm certainly hearing it at my end, and I think it may be a local problem, but we've had several people at one site who all had the same issue. So please let me know in the chat, which is the two little word bubble things at the very top of your screen, if you've got a problem. And Heather, just so that for your awareness, I truly think that this is not a global issue, but we'll see. So let's proceed.
Okay, thank you. So the next approach indicates the merge away from if X, then Y. So as I stated with the example that I shared, one of the things that we used to do is we used to have very clear guidelines when I came into the role at Disney, that, you know, if someone came and it was crowded, then we would offer this. And we really shifted away from that and have encouraged our cast members to really think outside of the box. We put together a recommendation that if something happened, here were a series of different options that you could offer for the guest, but really think outside of the box rather than sticking with you know, being so structured to say if X, then Y. And when we put out our recovery guidelines, we literally removed the boxes, we removed the lines from the table so that our cast members were not feeling kind of so structured with it. So on the next page, a couple of other examples that we used was we always assumed the best and recorded something in a tracking system. So I would have a cast member come to me and say, you know, this guest says they were here. They haven't been able to provide me with a copy of the tickets. And one of the first things I would say is, has this guest ever gotten any recovery from us? And they would say no. And I would say, then I would go ahead. We would use the phrase, a one-time goodwill gesture. And we would say, go ahead and provide the recovery, but put it in a tracking system so that we don't end up getting taken advantage of. We also had something called a BOLO process, which was be on the lookout. So if we did have customers or guests who were taking advantage of the rather generous recovery system that Disney had in place, we had a process where we would route those back to one individual who would be able to address those concerns. We also empowered our cast members to make magic. So actually, if you look up, if you Google the words Sherry Godmother, you will see that this was a cast member that I had who was able to make magic for some guests who were coming to the park. I believe they were getting engaged and they were asking if there was anything special that we might be able to do for them. Next was around response time. So how quickly we would take care of the guests. When I first came into the job, my leader asked me, what is our response time for emails that we were receiving? And I was told 2 days. So I told my leader 2 days. And then we had a guest who wrote to a senior executive and said that it had taken 21 days to get a response. And what I found out in another example of words matter is it was taking 21 days for those emails to get assigned to the right area. Once they got to the right area, it was only taking 2 days. We were able to get it down to the point where we were responding within 2 days to all of our guests by email. And then also just making sure that we share the positive aspects of the role and not just the negative aspects that are happening. So we got a lot of negative messages from our customers, and we would make sure that we gave all of our cast members the opportunity to also get those positives, because otherwise it can just really bring you down. Next, I'll share with you a couple of Toho specific examples. So when I first came into my role, there was a very big focus on how quickly we got our customers off the phone. And what I found out was that was the measurement. The measurement was not on how well we resolved the situation, yet it was on how quickly we resolved it. So we are now focused on first call resolution. Next is around closing the loop. So very early on in my role, I received a message from one of our board members saying that the customer wrote in and said, I complained about something and no one ever came to fix it. When I reached out to my team, I found out that we actually had fixed it, but no one had acknowledged to the customer that we were going to come out and fix that situation. No one had acknowledged to the customer that we had already fixed the situation. So we now have an approach that we use that is acknowledge the customer. I heard you, I understand the concern, then go fix it. And then after that, make sure that we let the customer know that we have taken care of that situation. The next one, and what you're seeing are some examples of looking for trends. So we had a situation where we had kind of a perfect storm related to billing. And we had a number of billing concerns that we were dealing with. And we looked at that. We looked on social media. We looked at the phone calls that were coming in, the emails that were coming in, and we noticed that this was starting to bubble up. We created a special place on our website for customers to be able to go in and ask billing questions. We started proactively posting on social media on our own pages, as well as responding to customers out on Facebook and other social media pages. We started responding to them, letting them know what the issue was, or pointing them somewhere where they were able to get their questions resolved. The next slide. I talked about the, so post-call survey. We have launched a post-call survey where we can get feedback from our customers to understand their experience when they call us. That allows us to, again, look for trends on things that we may need to fix holistically, but then that also helps us understand how each of our call center reps may need training or coaching on specific items. As I mentioned, we do use the phrase one-time goodwill gesture. So we offer credits for leaks and for specific high consumption examples. But we also have rules in place, again, to make sure that any of that generosity is not being taken advantage of. Additionally, we show grace. When it comes to collections, we offer arrangements, we offer payment extensions. Then for email signature line and bounce back message. So I think the next page will show you some examples. We're not quite at the place where we have these designed responses, but I can tell you when I first got into my role, we did not have a bounce back message. If you wrote to Toho, there was no acknowledgement that we had received your email. And we now have that where there is a message that says we've received your email. Here's when you can expect to hear back from us. These are some examples of where we're going in terms of when I was at Disney. You used to get the, Times New Roman 12-point font response back that was very generic and not very attractive. And we ended up branding it. And this is where we're headed with Toho. Not quite there yet. On the next slide. We really try to focus on interactions versus just transactions, understanding that a lot of our call center calls are transactions. The customer is calling because they need to start service, they need to stop service, they have a question. But when it's an interaction, we've created a role called the Customer Experience Advocate. And in that role, we really take those interactions. If it's going to take multiple back and forth conversations with the customer, we don't want to continue to ask them to call back into the call center. First of all, we don't want to continue to grow the volume of calls coming into the call center. But then also, we don't want to put that customer back into the queue. So if it's going to be multiple conversations, or if we need to engage other departments, other organizations, we pull that off and we use a customer experience advocate. Additionally, we've created another role recently called a generalist. So we used to have a billing role, a collections role, a dispatch role, a contact center role. And recently we've created something called the Customer Experience Generalist. And what that is that's the opportunity for us to be able to take a person and move them anywhere within customer service, any of our office-based roles. We don't have them out in the field. But if things are going really well in billing and we have a lot of capacity, we'll focus them on collections. If our calls spike up in the call center, we can move folks into the call center to be able to assist with calls, but it allows us that flexibility. Additionally, Disney uses a phrase, you said we listened, which is a very specific approach to taking feedback from employees and cast members or our customers, and then letting them know, based on what you've told us, we are taking this action. So you told us that you've told us that our call handle time is too long. We are very focused on diverting our call volume either to emails or to our website, but to another place where we can then provide more options to our customers or to our employees. So we don't call it you said we listened, but we're using that approach with both employees and customers. And then lastly, we have providing choice. So we provide choice to our customers and we meet them where they are. So when we say that we want to push more of our customers to the website or to emails, that doesn't mean that we are not making ourselves available by phone. When we say we want our customers to be able to handle transactions by an automated IVR, that does not mean that we are not going to be there for those customers who want to be able to talk by phone. So our goal is to provide choice. If the customer wants to send us an email, that is an option. We do have a quick chat that is available on our website. We do not do live chat right now. It's AI assisted chat, but we are looking to do live chat with our customers on our website also. But ultimately, it's up to the customer to use the communication vehicle that best works for them and for us to meet them in that place. So last, what I would wrap up with is continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection, as Mark Twain said. So as I started this off with is I brought a lot of great examples from Disney that we are looking to implement at Toho. We have not reached perfection, but we get better every day. We are improving the service that we deliver to our customers every day, whether that be billing, whether that be our technicians in the field, our contact center. Our goal is to keep getting better, and we are working at implementing and developing all of these initiatives in order to get to the place where we're providing the best service possible to our customers. And with that being said, I'd be happy to take any questions that might have come into the chat.
Heather, thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation. And I think I think for the most part, we did have one other person who reported an issue with the audio, but we did not get any mass responses. So we should be good there with just about everybody that was on the call. So we did get some good questions that came in during the session, and I've kind of collected them into a few here. And that is the first question really is about onboarding new employees, and sort of training is one thing, but living and breathing the Toho promise is another. And what role do your longtime employees play in that cultural process? And what do you do for training for an onboarding process as well?
So for Toho, our training really, I think of it as kind of a funnel for me when I think about the employees on my team, which is you kind of start at the biggest place and like, welcome to the water sector. If you haven't worked in the water sector before, welcome to the water sector. And here's what that means. Here's the importance of the work that we do as employees in the water sector. And then we say, welcome to Toho. Here's who Toho is. Let me give you some history of Toho. Let me talk to you about the promise and the principles and the priorities. And then, you kind of go through the funnel to, you are now part of the stakeholder services organization. And here's who we are as stakeholder services. Customer service is a piece of stakeholder services. And then you're in the contact center. Let's talk about the contact center. And then we have, okay, now let's sit down and train you on your role. With that being said, part of our onboarding, not immediately, is we have something called the Toho Tour, which is a full day experience where all of our employees go out and they go to a water plant, they go to a wastewater plant, they go to a lift station, they take a tour in the admin building. I kind of think about it as like, you know, going to the science fair. So every department has a board set up and has representatives there. So you get to go and you get to learn about every area within Toho, and then you actually go out into the field. So that is part of it. Then we also have something that we have, it's called the skill-based progression. So we have, as an example, for a customer experience rep, we have customer experience rep levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in order to progress through each of those, the expectation is that you are spending time shadowing with the other functions. So for a customer experience rep to become a 2, they have to spend time sitting side by side with billing and understanding billing, or maybe it's collections or dispatch. But those are all different parts. And all along the way through each of those steps in the onboarding process, we anchor it back to the promise, we anchor it back to the principles.
Okay, that's great. That answers several of the questions, actually. I think there was a nuance in one of the questions that talked about over what period of time, and you kind of suggested that it's self-directed, or that it might be very personal, going 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So can you address that aspect, perhaps?
It is somewhat self-directed, but there is also a timing requirement. So you have to be in your role X number of years in order to progress. So based on the role, it's going to be different. So billing, collections, contact center, dispatch, service technicians, and all of those are in your role or relevant experience. So if you have done collections at another utility, or even in another sector, in another industry, that could count towards relevant experience. So each of those comes with a number of years of experience. Plus, there's a couple of different categories that I kind of lump things into, which is how long have you been doing that thing? What kind of training have you had? What skills do you have? And then also, I call it kind of extracurricular activities as you get into the higher levels. So, you know, are you able to represent your team in cross-functional projects? Are you able to cover for an advocate if we had an opening? And then, you know, we also have, when it comes to the training, that is very much directed between the leader and that individual. So we used to say that in order to become a 2, you had to take a conflict resolution class. Well, maybe you're great at conflict resolution and I don't need you to do that. You're not good at time management, so I want you to take a time management class. So I believe we have a line item that indicates X number of hours of training as agreed upon with your leader.
Okay, that's great. I'm going to switch gears a little bit to a different question or line of questions, and that is about engagement with your customers. Do you do open houses or appreciation days? How do you engage on a sort of more face-to-face way with your customers, or in other ways?
So Toho has a lot of community engagement opportunities that our team will go out to. So historically, you would see that public relations would be out at these events, you know, hosting the Toho table. More and more recently, we are also staffing those community events with someone from customer service. So again, we used to be out there offering water, offering different supplies to help with water conservation. We now have someone out there with a laptop. You have a question about your account, we can help you out at that community event. We have offered after hours office time, and it has not been well utilized, so we haven't continued that. The thought was, a lot of our customers are working 9-to-5 jobs, so should we be open on weekends, or should we be open in the evenings and be available to them? And we haven't seen that, but we absolutely have our contact center folks, our billing folks, and our water conservation folks out in the community events that happen multiple times a month alongside our PR team.
Well, I think that's a great idea, to have your folks out at those events. So final question. What are the goals? So how far can this go? And what are the sort of next steps and goals? What's on your wish list, right? Because Disney's all about making a wish, right? So
a dream is a wish your heart makes, right?
Right.
So, for me, one of the things that I tell my team is, when we talk about like trying to reduce the number of calls that come into the call center, nobody wakes up in the morning and wants to call their water utility. So I would love it if we didn't have people calling in to say, can you explain my bill to me? Or people who were calling in and saying, my bill is wrong. Ultimately, we want to get everything right the first time. We want people to call in if they need to stop or start or move their service, if that's how they like to handle it, by way of phone call rather than by email or on the website. We want our customers to speak fondly of Toho. We look at our Google reviews. We do not have great Google reviews. We want people to proactively go out to Google and say, man, I have the best water utility. I have the best tasting water. I have the best priced water. I have the best service. We do a customer survey once a year. And it's not just about interactions with the call center. It's about affordability. It's about the quality of the water. It's about their interaction with our field technicians. It's about their interaction with our contact center folks. It's about their interactions with our website and their ability to navigate our website. We want our customers to be raving fans.
Okay, well, I think that answers all of our questions, at least in spirit. And so I am going to, before everyone goes, I'd like to invite you to an upcoming webinar. This one is in November, and that's not to suggest that we don't have one for October. We're working on something that is exciting. But this, I wanted to get this in front of you because November is a busy month. It's the, it's the Central Arizona Project, or CAP, is going to be our speaker. So CAP, the system is 336-mile engineering marvel, and it took 20 years to build it at a cost of $4 billion. That's with a B as in boy. And our speaker is Darren Frankum, and he is the Assistant General Manager of Operations, Power, Engineering, and Maintenance. And he's going to give an insider's look at infrastructure, operations, and maintenance of the system, and which includes, by the way, 4 tunnels, 10 siphons, 14 pumping plants, 39 radial gates, and more than 50 turnouts. And that's not to mention the 66,000 horsepower pumps that lift water more than 800 vertical feet into a 7-mile long tunnel. So this is going to be, I think, a very interesting presentation, and probably not your typical small water utility, but I think this is going to be interesting to a lot of water folks. So the webinar is Wednesday, November 12th, and same time, 1 p.m. Eastern. You can register by clicking on, or by scanning the QR code on your screen, and you can also find those details at that new website. Again, it's the same place, just a whole different setup at arwo.org. So I want to thank Heather one more time, and I want to thank all of you for being with us and for suffering through our any technical difficulties that you might have had, but I truly think that was a very limited case. Watch for the link to today's replay in your inbox. And again, don't forget to visit the new ARWO website. I'm kind of proud of it. That's all we have for you today. And we will hope to see you next time. Thank you so much.